Alright, got some League Start PoBs to share. These are some Lightning Conduit PoBs. This one right here in particular that I have open right now is probably what I'm going to be starting this upcoming league with. It's not like fully completely fleshed out. I don't have any flasks in at all. That's kind of because I didn't want to have flasks adding the stats, but most of the gear doesn't have many stats on them, just kind of some baseline stuff so I could see some numbers, but gets a pretty good idea of what the build might be capable of. And actually, right before recording this, GGG actually announced buffs to Lightning Conduit. Essentially, they revealed the gem info, and the Lightning Conduit they showed is even stronger than the one before, which is weird because it already looked good, but I think kind of solidifies that I'm gonna at least give it a go to start with. But just going to do a quick rundown of this POB and then one other one that I have that's going to be a potential higher investment option once I get some currency and gear farmed up and everything. But started off, this one is, they're both Elementalist. We're going with the Shaper of Storm, Shaper of Winter, and then Heart of Destruction nodes. And the goal is to get enough shock effect that your generic guaranteed 15% shock from Elementalist can scale all the way up to like a 65% shock. And then just whatever damage and survivability we can come by. So on this one, I actually have Ghost Shrouds. I'm getting some evasion. I would like a bit more on the evasion and armor on this starting one, but it is where it is for now. It'll be higher probably in actual league with gear, but you can see we go up through Witch, get some lightning stuff, go over to Shadow, Aura stuff. We need Arcane Sanctuary here for ailment avoidance because I'm trying to get 100% ailment avoidance, and this one helps a lot for it. And then Ghost Shrouds and Shadow stuff. And then on the left side, kind of similar, just damage and aura and defense. And then Tireless down here is pretty important for the reduced cost of skills, because I have Wrath as my Divine Blessing, and you can see right now actually showing 0 cost. Did I actually get it all the way down to 0? I didn't think I got it quite that low. Oh, it's not even going to show up here because it's actually at 0. Let's see, what if I turn this off? Tireless, tree, gear, inspiration. Huh? Well, there you go. I guess I did. But that's with some alt quality gems. It might take a while before I can get the Divine Blessing Wrath in. The other way to do it is to do some EB shenanigans, which I might do if I have to early on. Otherwise, I might just not run it for a while. But yeah, you can get just a lot of reduced cost to get the cost down to almost nothing, or down all the way to actually nothing. And then other than that, it has Lightning Conduit in 6 link, got some auras. I think I'm still going to be using Defiance Banner, even though it's a bit nerfed. Have the Wrath Divine Blessing set up. Stormbrand is the shock applier. This can be replaced for a lot of different skills. Stormbrand's probably going to be the one of choice for endgame bossing, because you can just attach it and then it doesn't matter where you are, where the mob is. They're just constantly getting pulsed with a shock. Orb of Storms is going to be good for mapping. There's going to be some other stuff. But yeah. I got Flame Dash with a Curse, either Conductivity just for conductivity's sake, or Poacher's Mark to get frenzy charges on bosses, possibly. I think I'm probably just going to have Conductivity just because it'll be easier, to be honest. And then got my Shield Charge and my Molten Shell. And then gear, it's pretty straightforward. Random Profane Wand in right now, but realistically I think it's probably going to be a Singularity Scepter. You can see the full DPS down here. It goes down a little bit. But the new buffed Singularity is looking really good. And the 25% reduced movement speed aura from it is actually really nice for mapping. Have a Titanium Shield with spell damage. This might end up being like an evasion hybrid shield for suppression, at least early on. We'll see. And then most of the res are just suppression and life on them. And some implicits, like aura effect stuff. Gloves get shock prolif, which I didn't feel like typing all of in because it doesn't matter anyway. And gloves are really important for lightning exposure as well, since you need some source of lightning exposure to get the extra minus 25 from Elementalist. And then boots, other than just being suppression, is where we get a lot of ailment avoidance. And not really too much else. I have the Awakener unique belt on. It's actually really solid if you're going a life ES setup, and with the Ghost Shrouds and everything. Gets a pretty good amount of ES and lets your life flask also apply to your ES. So you get decent ES refill on top of the bit that Ghost Shrouds will help with, which is really cool. I think it's going to be a solid pickup if you can get it early on. Although you might not want it too early because you might need to have like a rare belt for resistances. The only thing that's messed up with this setup right now is there's a lot of dex required specifically because of Grace. It should be okay. Like I said, like none of these items have any suffixes on them almost. It shouldn't be too bad to get that sorted out. But that's the starter setup. And it shouldn't rely on too much from gear. If the dex becomes a problem, maybe Grace just gets ditched. I'm not 100% sure yet. I don't want to like overly plan stuff because we don't know. It's a new skill and stuff's going to change probably regardless of what you plan. So I'm going to kind of wing it. I just needed a good baseline setup. And that was this one. But then my other setup that I also have is this one, which is anything over on this right side by Shadow is dropped. And instead we're going down towards Marauder. Gets a little bit more just HP value. And you get access to some max res stuff. And this one I've actually fleshed out the gear a bit more because I needed to make sure the resists were viable so that I could do a Lethal Pride with Tempered by War, which is giving Cold and Lightning taken as fire, and then I'm scaling max fire res. So this is similar to melding in that it makes me need more res on gear because it's lowering my Cold and Lightning res. 50% less Cold and less Lightning means to get 78 Cold res, I actually need double that in my positive res, so I need a lot of Cold and Lightning res on the gear and stuff. But half of them are being taken as fire, which I have 90 res of, so half of Cold is taken at 90 res, half is taken at 78. It's not quite as good as having 90 all res, but as soon as you do like any hard uber bosses and stuff where like they have a lot of pen, like Shaper Balls that have Cold pen, this setup is actually tankier than melding would be. Like having half of it go to fire where you're just actually getting 90 res because it doesn't have fire pen on the ability, it only has Cold pen, is super strong defensively. And then this setup gets a lot more armor as well. Right now it's at 40,000. No evasion, but tons of armor. And a little bit more HP. I think a little bit less damage. It's going to be higher here because I put more gear on. But same thing. Has a singularity in. Most of the gears are the same items, just with the resists added into them. Other than I did put a... I have to get suppression on a shield in this setup because we don't have the suppression from over here anymore. Oh, I didn't think about drop. I dropped this. I lost a lot of crit. I'm getting... I have to crit once every 8 seconds. So, I don't know. We're fine on crit still for EO. We'll be okay. Might not be super, super, super high uptime. Maybe there's some value in picking up Light of Divinity for a little bit more crit chance. Something to think of. I kind of just put this one together not that long ago. But much tankier setup and should be a lot better for bossing specifically and might actually be decent. The only thing that's kind of lacking is some sustain. One thing you can do is go block, which was pointed out by Rue. You can just spec I could spec some block nodes at the cost of either some life nodes or it's not really much good damage. I think the only way to do it in exchange for damage is like this. But get some block. Get glancing blows. Right now, I think I need an unset ring on one of these ring slots or something, because otherwise I have a bunch of unreserved mana and I don't have any gem space left that I can see. But I was thinking Flesh and Stone might be okay for the blind since we don't have any evasion. It would help a bit with getting swarmed. And then the less damage from enemies not in the circles getting buffed back up to 15% less taken. It might be okay, but if you go block, you get Tempest Shield, which is really good. And then with probably a little bit more investment, you could probably get these numbers up pretty close to cap. And specifically if I got life on block, I think that would be really good. Life on block on a shield. But we'll see when we get there. I actually really like this setup in particular. It's probably going to need some of the specifics worked out, but like the baseline, pretty good HP, really solid armor, and pretty good LE mitigation and a lot of damage, like 9 to 10 million DPS right here. It's actually looking pretty promising, and I'm kind of excited to try it out. I don't think this Lethal Pride has anything in particular on the notables to like pad it either. I just kind of, I don't think I edited it from whatever the default was, or I picked a random or something. Oh, there's a 4% life. Okay, so it's getting a little bit of HP. That'd be another reason to pick up Light of Divinity. But either way, Lightning Conduit looking pretty good. Elementalist looking like the easy starter play for it just because of the guaranteed shocks, and then you can scale the shock effect up pretty easily. And then with high investment, I think you actually might be able to get to a point where you could pretty comfortably do Uber Pinnacle bosses on hardcore with it, which I'm not necessarily even planning to do, but if you can, that's awesome. But yeah, skill looks fun. I'm excited to try something new. And yeah, I think this is going to be more or less my initial plan for the league start. So I'll have the PoBs again linked in the video description for anybody that wants to look at them. Thanks for watching. See ya.